I want you guys to imagine for a moment. Imagine, imagine you wake up in the morning and you check your phone, you check your Instagram, you check your Twitter, your Reddit, whatever you do, whatever your morning ritual is. Maybe you have breakfast, maybe you don't. Like myself, I'm not really a breakfast person, right? Just imagine all of the regular routine things that you do in the morning. And then imagine on top of all of those things, you also have this unmitigated glee for this random lady that you don't know getting shot in the face 3 times. Like, seriously, just imagine having such excitement, right? Imagine like you're showing so much, you're showing so much of the white in your teeth that it doesn't matter what time of day it is, but your excitement is illuminating the planet because that's how excited you are. Kind of like this guy.
Wondering what your opinion will be from Minnesota? It's another Rip Bozo situation. That's right. Yep, shouldn't be. Hey. They tell you stop moving your car, get out of the fucking car, and you start driving around, and you're gonna end up shot. That's the way it is. Yeah, Rip Bozo.
Actually, before we even get into that, let me dial it back a bit. First off, I just got home from work, hence why I'm still in the jacket. Plus, it's also quite cold where I'm at, so the jacket stays on until the body temperature improves. And this whole thing that happened today with the shooting, I believe her name was Renee Good. It's just been on my mind. Like, not only the shooting has been on my mind, but the reaction to just the reaction to everything has been quite eye opening in terms of like it's not the first time that an event has happened and we've seen an extreme lack of nuance in regards to how people are talking about it. It's definitely not the first time. When I remind myself that this person that was killed, you know, that's a whole person with a whole life, a whole family, a whole, she has children as well. I can't recall how many children, but I think she's got 2 or 3. Even if she had one child, right? I just find it incredibly frustrating when these kinds of scenarios are oversimplified to just another case of F around and find out. When in actuality, like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, left or right. It doesn't have to be such an extreme binary position. I'll play another clip of Asmongold because I think this clip, ironically, is actually getting to the heart of my frustration with situations like this. Let's take a look.
Why not just shoot the tires? So that way you make the car unsafe and some other innocent bystander can get hurt indiscriminately because the person didn't follow the law? Nah, bro, you shoot him right in the fucking face.
So the funny thing about that clip to me is how jovial he is about making fun of somebody saying shoot for the legs, right? Which is stupid. Everybody and their grandma at this point, by now, right, should know, hopefully, that law enforcement are not trained to shoot for the legs. They're trained to aim center mass, like anybody who's taken it upon themselves, even for a scrap of a moment, to really learn why is it that a bunch of law enforcement kill a bunch of people rather than doing the shit that they do in the movie, right? Why? If you've done that, then you know, right? So yes, you don't shoot for the wheel or shoot for the leg or anything stupid like that. However, on the other side of the coin, there's another extreme where, yes, we laugh at people who say shoot for the leg, but in this specific scenario that went down, shooting her in the head 3 times is also an extreme, especially given the situation, right? Now, speaking of the situation, I do want to highlight a few caveats, right? Number one, there are instances where if more information comes out about this shooting, there are instances where, depending on the information, the shooting becomes justified. Such as if it was the case where before the video started rolling, she had made a bunch of threats. She was already being reckless with the car and trying to hit other people. The ICE officers asked to see inside the car to see if she had any weapons, but there are a series of events that may come to light that were not put on camera, that if they were to come to light, it changes how the story ended, or it should change how we look at the story. That is definitely the case. And I do know that there's going to be a lot of people out here who have like a very Disney mindset of the world, and they'll hear the facts, they'll hear more information, and they'll still say, "Oh no, but she's a mother. She has children. You should never." Well, if it was the case that what I said turned out to be the case, then we have to reanalyze the shooting, right? So I'm not going to be a complete airhead and not concede that there are facts of the case or facts of the scenario that we are not privy to yet. So making up one's mind so harshly either way is probably not the best thing to do. But given what we do know, it is not completely outrageous to look at how the shooting went down and just wonder or ask oneself, did it really need to go down that way? And I think any reasonable person, the answer should either be no, or the answer should at least be, let's think about what kind of actions could or should be taken in this kind of situation, right? Because this whole case creates an extremely concerning precedent where, I mean, I say precedent, but like this kind of situation has happened so many times in America, right? So I don't know how much this is going to change, but I do know that one of the reasons why we really need to be analyzing how we talk about things like this is because of how these cases will open the door for similar things to happen more frequently in the future. It can't just be a matter of you feel like your life is in danger. Now you can shoot to your heart's content and completely vaporize this person from existence. Like it can't, we can't, it just can't be like that, because it leads to, just imagine a world where that's the case, right? Like, oh, I feel like I can reasonably prove or claim that my life was in danger, so I'm going to shoot. And as I'm saying this, like, I remember that it isn't like that. A person, like the law is actually not set up in like that, especially at least in America, right? Like you may be able to make the claim that you felt like your life was in danger, but whether that's going to hold up in court is going to be a completely other story, right? Just like the Sonia Massey shooting, the lady that she had the boiling water and she tried to throw it at the police officer and then he shot her, and then I believe he ended up getting indicted and losing his job and all of that stuff. So had he tried to argue that, oh, she threw the boiling hot water at me, I felt like my life was in danger, so I took her life instead, mission failed, right? Like that argument didn't hold up, so that guy faced the consequences. But going back to my initial frustration, and again, just highlighting not just people like Asmongold, but how the greater culture as a whole is just so team sports, you go into a person's subreddit who supported the shooting, and all of the comments, for the most part, like 95% of the comments are in support. And it's hard to tell if they are in support because they genuinely believe that the shooting was justified, or because their streamer overlord has that position, right? Same on the other side as well. If you're a person that doesn't believe that it was justified, sometimes it's hard to know if that person doesn't feel that way because their streamer overlord or their content creator that they follow doesn't believe that it was justified. But I do want to bring light to the fact that there are going to be plenty of people in this world who are perhaps not as online as we are, and there are going to be people who are online as much as we are, who are not so easily swayed and deterred by their streamer or the opposite content creator, right? There are many people in this world, both online and offline, that can actually think for themselves, and I think those people end up being drowned out in the noise of the people cheering in their seats from miles away, because they make up the biggest noise. They are the largest group of people, and it just feels like such an insufferable and impossible task to ever speak to them or to get through to them and to actually have a more grounded, nuanced discussion about these kinds of events, these kinds of situations. So that's mostly what I wanted to share about the shooting. I don't want to make this video too long. It's more of a just spitballing how I felt about it. And just to reiterate my position, to make it a bit more crystal clear, I don't think the shooting was justified. I think that this case is a clear example of how trigger happy law enforcement in America is, and coming up with alternate ways to deal with conflict is clearly an enigma, because right now the solution that they're going with is essentially triple tap them and then like just RP walk away. You know what I mean? It's not even RP walk, because that RP walk has like a more of a slow pace to it. This guy was power walking. This guy was out of there. Again, to see the excitement and the glee and the championing of such actions, when it doesn't have to be so extreme on that side, and it also doesn't have to be so extreme on the she did nothing wrong, or because like I am of the ilk that believe that you just need to comply, man. Like if the police come to you, or not the police in this case, the ICE agents, it's going to be in your best interest to just comply if you don't want to get killed, because this is how they're behaving, right? It shouldn't be like that, but sometimes you have to behave in the world that you actually live in, not behave as if you're in the world that you want to be in. So I am aware that what I'm saying can come off as just, oh, this guy's just he's just a fencer. He's just like a very calm, smug, centrist type of dude that criticizes these people over here and criticizes these people over there. And because he's not in any particular camp, he feels like he's exempt from any criticism, or he feels like he is above it all. And I want to just take this moment to very clearly let you guys know that that is not who I am. I'm definitely a person that's far more on the left than I am to the right. I believe the term would be center left, if people still use that term these days. I don't even know. But yeah, I'm not going to be out here saying like she did nothing wrong and she was totally fine to try and drive away. I think I saw earlier today Hassan Piker and Asmongold were having a back and forth, like a weird back and forth. Like Hassan was typing in the chat, and then in Asman's stream chat, while Asman was responding with his voice on stream, instead of them to just actually speak to each other. It was a bit weird. But Hassan was like Asman asked Hassan, what would you have done in the same situation if you were the woman in the car? Like, you would have gotten out the car, right? Or you asked him what he would do, because Asman thought that Hassan would use the more reasonable common sense of, yeah, okay, if it was me, of course I'd come out the car. Asman was expecting Hassan to say that, but then Hassan is like, no, I would have done the same thing she would have done because XYZ. And it's like, okay, I don't know. When we are exploring these kinds of cases in this kind of way, it really highlights that people just live in completely different realities, because I think any reasonable person would be like, bro, Hassan, you need to get out the car. And for you to have such a big audience and boldly claim that, no, I wouldn't have stepped out the car. Who are they to blah, 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 blah. I'm going to drive away. This is not the kind of inspiration or boldness you want to install in your viewer base, right? I think that's the same way that I think Asmongold's words and his glee and the amount of shining sunshine coming out of his teeth from how happy he is. The same way I think that's a very unhealthy message to put out there. I also think people like Hassan kind of blindly acting like it isn't a silly thing to just get out the car and comply with the police. I think that's also quite harmful as well. So anyway, I'm going to be looking quite closely at the situation, because I'm curious to see what more information comes out, to see if anything changes, and to see what happens with the shooter, the ICE officer, agent guy. Yeah, it's going to be quite an interesting scenario. And I will say this. What I'm about to say is probably going to sound very random and unreasonable and inflammatory, but I believe it to be true. And I think a lot of people believe it to be true, especially people on the left, but they wouldn't be willing to say it. I'm glad, right? I'm very glad that the person that was shot wasn't a black person. Because if it was a black person, there's multiple reasons why I'm glad it wasn't. Firstly being, or maybe perhaps this is the main reason, if it were a black person, so much of the nuance of what is worth exploring would have been completely ejected out of the window, because the racial component would have been like the scene in Interstellar, like those aren't mountains, they're just waves. Like it would have been like the blackness of the person, the racial aspect would have been the waves, and it would have completely engulfed every other conversation in regards to the situation. And I'm so glad that that is not the case, because there are things worth exploring, such as everything I've talked about, or even just, it's not even about what's worth exploring with the case. I think it's a good case study to take a moment to step back, pause, think about what happened, think about what you would have done, think about people saying she was clearly trying to run him over versus people saying, no, she was just trying to get away. Like, there's different components to the situation that are worth analyzing carefully. But if she was a black person, I think none of that discussion would have been happening, or people would be attempting to have those discussions, but it would have mostly been silenced by the gigantic interstellar wave of, now there's a racial aspect. It's just racism. And I think that would have been very, very, very disappointing. And as a black person, personally, it would have been very frustrating as well, because I do hate it when this kind of tragedy happens to a black person, but then it always becomes about race. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely aspects where race is a necessary or worthy component to be discussed, because there are racially motivated crimes. Never going to take that away from the reality of this planet that we live on. But not every crime that happens to a black person by a non-black person is racially motivated, which is such an obvious no-brainer take. But when you live in this world of the internet, such an obvious you would be led to believe that such an obvious take is just complete nonsense, and you're an Uncle Tom or you're a coon because you're saying stuff like yeah. When I saw the news and I heard the situation, there was some part of me that was just hoping, please don't let this person be black, because then, like I said, the interstellar waves will come about. There might be riots about it. And then the riots would then cause more fuel for people to do the whole, with the black fatigue, we're tired of this, we're tired of that. And to some degree, like, that is kind of tiring. Like, as a black person, it is tiring for a black person to be killed, for there to be, civil unrest, and that civil unrest to take away from the other aspects of the situation that are worth analyzing or exploring. And then when it's all said and done, you just get a bunch of people that are more fed up with black people and the things that we complain about, or the issues that we have to face. And then they get tired of those black issues just constantly being propped up and placed in front of them. So I do understand where that kind of frustration comes from, which is why I'm just very happy that this woman was not a black woman or a black man. Anyway, that's me. Those are my thoughts on this topic. I don't know how clear or coherent I was. But I guess I'll find out when I watch this back. Thanks for watching. And if you like what I had to say about this topic, and you also like video games, and you also like people playing video games while they have lots to share about various topics, then please subscribe, give me a follow, and hit me up when I'm streaming. Sometimes I stream very occasionally when I feel like it. And they are fun streams because we talk about stuff like this while playing video games, but live. So if you like that stuff, be sure to give me a follow, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.